We're going to talk about how to get this conversation started with your family. It's great that you guys are all here today because this is one of the first steps in getting everything rolling for your estate plan.
And what I'm going to get into is choosing your attorney. And where do you start out? I like to tell people, radiate out. Start with your family, people you trust, maybe your own attorney. And if you have a personal attorney, ask them. They may not have the expertise, but they can send you to someone who has this. Who do they use? The same thing you do with your doctors.
We have grandmothers at age 90 running marathons. Gee, what are we going to do here? But we have more farmers over age 65 than under 35. How many farmers here today are under age 35? I won't ask you how old you are. I'll assume most of you are older than 35. Okay, do you realize that the farmers that are over age 65 own nearly 50% of the farm assets in this country? Now, if we do a little rapid mathematics and new math and old math, it tells us that most of those farm assets are going to be turned over in the next 25 years. Maybe we ought to do a little planning about that. Who's going to be our next generation of farmers? And the studies show the majority of farmers, they don't plan to retire. Okay, well, maybe we ought to be thinking.
The person who is a power of attorney can change a person's will, and that they can't do. And the person would have to have the capacity to grant, so usually when you go to an attorney to have a POA executed, they're going to make sure that the person has the capacity to make this. You don't want to wait too long, and unfortunately that happens sometimes where people go to a practitioner and they say, I don't feel comfortable giving you the power, the person who's brought mom or dad in, because I don't think they have the capacity to make that determination out. You've lost, there was a window and you've lost it. If it is to survive someone's disability
this whole thing, well, you got to get a start, and you got to start at the beginning. And that is that first step that you're going to do, and you made a good first step by coming here today. You got to get started, you got to talk about this, and you got to get moving.
Okay, so these are 4 key questions, and again, this is for everybody, whether you're in agriculture or not. These are the questions that are really going to drive your retirement decision. Can you afford it? Is it the right time? How will your spouse and family be affected? And of course, for farming, that's even more important because you've got all those succession issues that people who just have regular employment with a company wouldn't have to deal with, that kind of thing. And then, do you want to retire? Personal choice. So, can I afford it?
Guess what? That equity that you have in the land is collateral for your loan. And you go into the lender and he goes, oh, I just sold part of your collateral. No, you haven't, because they have a lien on that farm, and without permission, you can't sell it without their approval. And so they're going to take a chunk of it. So they're going to take a chunk of it. Uncle Sam is going to send you a letter. Hey, I heard you just fell into some riches, and congratulations and all that stuff. Now, would you mind sending me a certain part of it? So how much is going to be left? That's one of the things you may want to be double checking with.
Obviously the more resources you have there, the better. And then a lot of it is personal choice. And many people say, I don't want to retire. And you're seeing that in all occupations, but particularly in agriculture, it's always been a very strong thing that people want to do. In fact, we found out very quickly at those focus groups that farmers that we were talking to didn't relate to the R word at all. So we stopped using it. We took R out of the vocabulary and we called it later life farming because we wanted to acknowledge that people are older, but they also want to continue farming in some capacity.
But you're also your business associates. You in the farm community know who helps other farmers. And maybe those that you hold in high esteem and respect, and you think you would act similarly, ask them. Then you can look to your own professionals. I said, there's also the bar associations keep a listing, and they have them broken down into categories. These are self-reported, so it's just who wants people to think that they do this work.
Okay, we've been throwing this whole thing around, but really what we're talking about is maybe something to do with retirement and estate planning. We're touching this issue of taxes again. The government's running quite a deficit. They need all the money they can get, so that's why we keep promoting that. Anyway, transferring assets and business organizations. Okay, what is estate planning? Oh, I mean, we're talking about what's going to happen after you kick the bucket, or what the gentleman said this morning, whenever someone croaks, or whatever term they use. But whenever you pass away, how is your property going to be distributed?
There's professional organizations, and I'll go over a bunch of them, but what you want to look for is the criteria to gain acceptance to the professional organization. And is it third-party validated? Is it educational? Is it experience? You want to know what's the worth of the credential.
The state of Vermont, we had some farms that had silos on top of a hill. Great place to put a cell tower inside the silo, because you don't have to go through local zoning permits. Whoops, some of that land was conservation easements, and it was limited to agricultural use. Cell towers are not, that's not an agricultural use, so they were kept from getting an income that could make that farm more thing. That has changed. Ag tourism.